What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Progressive Gentleman Podcast. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Dan.
I'm Matt.
And thank you for taking the time to nerd out about music with us. And we know that we have not nerded out about music in quite some time.
I'm surprised you still ripped through that intro though. You had
Right?
it committed to memory.
Like riding a bike, man. Like riding a
Yeah.
bike. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time we've ever seen our podcast like on the different platforms, like go idle or whatever, like the little like sleepy symbol or whatever. So
Yeah.
we were like, oh shit, we should probably figure out a way to still do this.
Yeah.
But
Apologies for the unintended hiatus. Finishing up school was a lot, and wrapping it up and ensuring I did well and finished strong. So that took a lot of my time, and then you also had a lot going on as well. With
yeah, I took a little bit of a different route. I went to Asia. I went to Japan for a little bit.
yeah, that sounds way more
It was
fun than what I did.
a little bit different than what you experienced. A little bit less work. But no, I mean, like Matt said, some good things kind of came out of that hiatus, and that is, Matt is a master's graduate, and that's pretty freaking awesome.
You will now hereforth refer to me as Master McMonagall and only. No, I'm totally kidding.
But no, that took a lot of work, man, and I know you put a lot of effort into that shit, and I'm happy that you were able to achieve that dream, and
Thanks, man.
you
Yeah, I
know,
appreciate
and
it.
I'm glad that we're able to start doing this again, and
Yeah, me
hopefully
too.
a little bit more consistent. We'll see how it I mean, anything's more consistent than one every 6 months, so
Yeah, yeah,
but
that is true. Yeah, hopefully
but
now with things should go back to normal, and I'll have some semblance of free time again, and be able to do hobbies and enjoy things outside of work and
what a
class.
concept! What a concept!
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, enjoy life. What? Uh,
I mean, not that I didn't
but
enjoy class, but it's
no,
a different thing for sure. Like,
it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of
yeah,
work working full time and then also like going to school full time and not just any school, but Carnegie Mellon, which is a freaking insane school and in a tech degree, which is what they're known for, which is an insane degree. That's tough, dude. You
well, thanks, man. Yeah, I
you
appreciate
killed
it.
it though. You
But
killed it. But
I'm
anyways,
happy to be done on the other side now. Just on the job market and
yep.
everything.
So if
But
anyone's got any tech jobs out there for remote,
yeah,
hit us up.
hit
We
your
both
boy up.
technically work in tech, so we'll take
Yeah,
a look.
yeah. Just throw them our way. We're happy to look. It doesn't hurt.
Oh yeah. But anyways, I mean, we've been in some talks too for some future episodes. Some more get back into the interviewing situation. Some bands and artists that we've been in conversations with that we're pretty excited about talking to and. Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to get back in the swing of things, make things a little bit normal. I don't have any. Well, I am traveling here soon, but after that, I don't have many travel plans the rest of the year. So I think we'll be able to sort of start nailing down some more episodes. But
Yeah, I don't know if we'll like necessarily be like on a weekly cadence.
nah, probably not.
But we'll be back to a somewhat regular, hopefully like bi-monthly, like every other week kind of deal,
Yeah,
something like that. We'll be able to work out and
we should individually have some free time as well to like if we want to revisit the solo episode potential as well.
yeah,
Just for content, like
put
that's
stuff
definitely
out.
an option, but we obviously prefer to do this stuff together. So we're gonna try to make that work as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but for this episode, usually we have some semblance of structure, right? So usually we come into an episode and there's like it's a type of episode where we're like it's the Gentleman Five or whatever, where we're talking about five of X things, or we're gonna talk about this band's discography, or we're gonna talk about these shows that we went to, or this, that, and the other thing. I think we're going to kind of approach this a little more loose with this episode.
This is
Just
kind of get
because,
back into the flow of making episodes and like catching up on lost
yeah,
time.
yeah. And I think we kind of want to, there's some things that we want to talk about just between the two of us. And we figured, oh, we'll just have that conversation on a podcast episode. And one of the things that kind of blows my mind, I believe it kind of blows your mind as well, and probably a lot of people, is just this sort of emergence of no pun intended, emergence of a band like Sleep Token into the scene, and how prominent they've been, like almost not from the jump, because I remember listening to them back in like 2016, 2017. I don't remember. Whenever Jaws came out, that was kind of when they first came on my radar. They weren't super big then, but all of a sudden they're number one on the Billboard charts and they're selling out Wembley Stadium. And I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's like, why is that happening? You know what I mean? Like, it's not that
Yeah.
they're not incredible, because I mean they're doing things that a lot of other bands are not doing. The way that they blend, you know, the different genres of music, the way that they blend it really gives them sort of popular appeal across a lot of different fan bases. The fact that I'm scrolling like TikTok and stuff, and I see like Swifty Sleepies or some shit. Like there's a crossover between Taylor Swift and Sleep Token that I never thought a band that I like listen to and enjoy at such a high level would have a crossover with like Taylor Swift fans. I never kind of pictured that as a
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah, it is.
And
It is weird to, especially something as niche as progressive metal specifically. Not even just like the, higher level like metal bucket, but something like progressive metal, which generally is like the thing that even like some metalheads are like, "What is this?" And,
right.
and so it ends up being like this very specific niche thing, and somehow Sleep Token has managed to like transcend the like nicheness of progressive metal and has become this massive band that has, just in the last like couple years just exploded into, the kind of pop culture scene. Like you see their stuff all over the place. Like, I mean, I've even seen like Sleep Token stuff at like Hot Topic, which is
Yeah.
which is just wild, starting to see that it's like so popular that you can like find their merch in malls and stuff. It's just like
Yeah,
it's wild.
it is weird to see their rise and how quickly that they rose to that level. And you know, you see bands and fans sort of reacting in different ways, right? You see, you know, I don't know if it's from a place of jealousy or whatever, but you see bands who are like, "Oh, well, we've been on the scene for longer, and somehow this band seemingly came out of nowhere and is now like number one on the charts." And then you see other bands, you know, I think of like the Will Ramoses of the world who are like doing covers on YouTube and just, you know, obsessed with the band. And then you kind of see a similar response from fans. You're like, this isn't metal, you know, this is garbage. This is not even impressive. Like, how is this band popular? Oh, it's popular because it's so dumbed down. But then you see sort of true musicians who listen to the shit say, no, this is some complex shit that they have going on here. Like, they're doing things that others aren't doing. They deserve this popularity, and the fact that they have this popularity is also mind blowing to me. So it's like, you know, because nobody ever thought that this type of music could sort of reach that level.
Yeah.
So anytime I see a negative comment, I'm always sort of thinking like, where's that coming from? I feel like it's never from a good place. Like, I always feel like it's
Yeah.
some level of jealousy. Or just like,
Yeah.
you know, you have your metalheads who are like, I hate clean singing in my metal. Like, you know, like those people are never going to change. But I don't know.
Yeah. When
It's
it's
just
like then
interesting.
just
They
stay
seem to
out
be very
of
polarizing.
yeah. It's like the that whole like shtick of like, oh, I hate clean singing in my metal. And it's like, well then stay out of the core genres then. It's like, we're
Right.
talking about progressive metalcore. Like there is clean singing in progressive metalcore. That's what it is. That's like a notable feature of metalcore. So like then stop listening to metalcore. It's
Right. Yeah.
like
Like, you know, you don't like it. Like, I know that I don't like country music. I don't like listen to the new Morgan Wallen album and be like, oh, this is garbage. Like, I already know I'm not going to like it. Why am I going to waste my time?
yeah.
Like,
It's like I mean
but
if
I
someone
feel like it's
suggests
like
it,
that.
I'll listen, but otherwise
Yeah.
I'm not like
Yeah.
actively seeking it out because I'm like, well, I know I don't like this type of music, so I'm not going to enjoy it. So I'm not going to waste my time listening to it. But if someone's like, "Oh, I think you might actually enjoy this one though," then I'm like, "Okay, maybe I'll check it out."
Right.
And then, I generally try to find I guess I usually approach it from the opposite standpoint. Instead of like going in and trying to find something to hate about it, I try to be like, well, there was a really cool riff in there, or like, oh, I like that line in the lyrics, or whatever. Like try to find something out of it that I enjoy and can take away as like a positive thing. And that's generally why I don't listen to a lot of country music, because I usually come away being like, I didn't like any of that. So
I'm
that's generally
especially
why.
like that if I'm trying to like create like a music bridge between myself and another person, like that
Yeah.
maybe we never thought that we could see eye to eye on music. I've always been sort of like, oh, he's the metalhead, even in high school and stuff. Like, and I played sports, so like most of the people that I'm on the team bus with or whatever, like you can hear the metal just slamming out of my headphones, and people are just like, oh, he's like he listens to scary shit, while they're all listening to rap and whatever the shit. But like if someone has a conversation with me, I can typically find something that they can appreciate, and I can usually find something to appreciate in what they listen to, and like I still try to like carry that forward. But for the people who are like, I'll never listen to any metal with clean. I hate that shit. I hate clean vocals in my metal or whatever. But then always, as soon as Sleep Token releases a new track, they're listening to it and shitting on it. It's like that
You
old
just want
adage of
to,
like if you have like an ulcer in your mouth, like you keep rubbing your tongue against it, even though you know it's gonna fucking hurt. You
yeah, it
just
hurts when I do
like
this. Then stop doing it.
yeah, just stop. You don't like it, like and especially if you're gonna just immediately approach it with like I know I'm gonna hate this, so I'm gonna go in and like start shitting. Like that's
I
you're
feel
not
like
approaching
with
it with an
the
open mind.
yeah, I feel like the social media culture has built this like level of like, oh, it's cool to be an edge lord and be like, oh, this is stupid, and then like people are like,
Yeah,
oh man, look at you, you're so cool. What do you like?
yeah.
And stuff. What I think in reality, most
Five
people are
Finger
like,
Death Punch is great.
I feel
Sorry.
like in reality, most people are like, oh, this guy kind of sucks, and he seems like he'd be a bummer at parties, but
Yeah,
like in their head it's like, oh, I'm the cool hip guy that like knows what's good, and like I'm a tastemaker kind of thing. And I don't see my opinion of music as like the de facto like I am, I have the best taste in music. It's just I have a taste in music, and it's what I like, and people can like whatever they want, and it doesn't have to be
yeah.
what I like. I love it when people do enjoy the same thing as me, but that is not the
Yeah, because
requirement.
I feel like guys like us, like music is such a major part of our like identity that like when somebody does like when you can relate to somebody on that level, it like increases sort of that connection even with that person. So like I'm always excited when I find out that somebody that I know listens to a similar type of music as me because it's like I could talk about music all day. I
Yeah.
can't necessarily talk about many other topics all day. So it's like then conversations with those people turn into like, oh, how's your day? Oh, that's good. Yeah, mine too. Yeah, weather kind of sucks. It's like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, like
Yeah.
it's
It's like, and I'm done.
instead of like, oh, did you hear that new Sleep Token album? Did you hear that new Dayseeker song? Like it's just you only
Yeah,
have
and
so
there's
many things
always
to
new
talk about.
music to talk
Yeah,
about. So it's
always.
like it is a topic that you can keep going for hours on, when music is something that you regularly listen to and invest time in and are interested in. And I mean, I like my one friend from work, he like predominantly is a jazz guy, and I don't like listen to a lot of jazz like on my own, but I appreciate jazz, and like he has given me some bands to check out, and I'll listen to them and be like, wow, this is really good. And like I can see some of like metal being influenced by jazz stuff and like pulling from these
Especially
types of
prog.
bands. Yeah. And so like we've been able to like bond over music, despite he doesn't listen to metal and I don't regularly listen to jazz, but we found a common interest through Tigran.
Hell yeah.
And that was kind of like, oh, you like Tigran too? And then it was
Shout
just
out to
like,
Exploring Birdsong for showing us Tigran. I mean, we had
yeah.
heard some of his stuff before that, but like, damn, so glad we did that deep dive. But anyways, continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, that was something that was like talking about music was like that moment was like, did we just become best friends? Like, and we talk about music all the time, and he'll tell me about like jazz bassists that he's been listening to or he saw a video of. Was like, oh, this was so impressive, and I'll check it out and be like, wow, that is really cool. And despite the fact that we listen to different genres of music, we both can talk about music together, like honestly to the point where like we should probably do some actual work today. And like have to like, all right, our lunch has been a little long. We should probably go back to work now. And
Have you showed
it's
him any of like Dan Briggs's side projects and shit?
and I haven't yet, but I want to show him some of
That's probably a
those.
good one.
I think he would enjoy them, especially because like especially the instrumental stuff.
Yeah.
I think he would appreciate it from a skill standpoint. So yeah, we'll bridge that gap more. I'll get him more into the metal side, and he's got me more into the jazz side. So,
Hell yeah.
but
But
yeah, I
yeah.
think that whole like just like dunking on them is just like to be cool because they've become popular now. And I mean, I do feel like my stance on like the new album is kind of I don't like it as much as
Yeah,
their
let's
previous
talk about the
albums,
new album a little
but
bit. Let's talk about that. We
yeah.
might as well. Uh I tend to agree. I think since they've sort of been in the spotlight, um I feel like this is their weakest release personally. It has grown on me.
Yeah,
I will
I
admit
agree with
that.
that.
It's been a grower not a shower, but it it's definitely grown on me. Even like some of the poppier stuff that I didn't super cling to in the beginning, I find myself singing lines from and annoying the shit out of my wife with. Um so yeah, I mean, I do think that there's staying power with the record. It's still a good record. I don't see it being like an album of the year contender at the end of the year for me personally.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's where it stands for me too. And like, my initial take saying like it's not my favorite is just like it's still good, like you said. And there are like a lot of catchy things and stuff that I enjoy about it, and it is growing on me more, but I think as far as like, all of their previous albums would be like album of the year contenders for me, or and in one case it
yeah, and
it, it was actually album of the year. So, whereas this
right, yeah,
one I don't know what my album of the year will be, but I feel pretty strongly that it won't be this one. But, all that being said, like I still very much enjoy the album. Like I'm not trying to be like, "Oh, it's horrible or
and honestly,
bad."
with how much it's been growing on me, who knows, dude? I don't know, but I don't think so. At this point in time, I don't believe that it's
A
gonna
month
be
from
in
now,
that.
you'll be like, "I've listened to it 754 times and it's now my favorite of all time."
I mean, like there are some pretty powerful songs on this record. Like I feel like "Look to Windward" is a really good opening track, and then sort of the two closing tracks, "Gethsemane," which has that like math rocky Delta. I thought I was
That's
listening to
really
a
cool.
Delta Sleep song for a while, like there,
Yeah.
which I thought that was very different from what they've done in the past. Usually their guitars are like, and there's been a lot of memes about this too, where it's just like Sleep Token guitarists where they're just sitting there sort of twiddling their thumbs, and then towards the end, then it's just like a chuggy freaking drop Z 9 string riff, um, and like I mean that kind of is in a lot of usually what shines in a Sleep Token song is the vocals and lyricism from Vessel, and then the drums, obviously. Like, and I
Yeah.
even thought that back in the day, I was just like this because 2016, 2017, whatever, they had like 20,000, if that many, monthly listeners on Spotify. They were super unknown. They were always bottom billed if they were on a tour or whatever. I remember the dude from Issues was given a interview and it was like, yeah, we were touring with like three other bands and then this lowly unnamed band who wore masks called Sleep Token. And it's like, uh, back then when I was listening to them, I was always like, this drummer like needs to be in a bigger band. Like
Yeah.
I was always like, he's probably too good for this band. And now it's like, oh no, it makes sense. Like now he fits because like he deserves to be in bands that are selling out stadiums and stuff because he's insane.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
like, anyways, like I was saying, usually that's what shines: vocals, lyricism, drums, and then like instrumentation is sort of like secondary when it comes to like guitar and bass. With the exception of a few songs, I'll that bass riff, that like what the hell song was that off Take Me Back to Eden? The Summoning. That bass riff, that little like freaking that
The
oh
funky groove at the
funky little
end.
that was
Yeah.
so good. So good. But anyways, this is kind of the first time for me where the guitars really shine.
Yeah.
That little math rocky Delta Sleep like cleaner tone, brighter toned. Like, are they using six strings in this song? Like, is this the first time that they're using six strings in this? Like, it seems very
Yeah, it's like did they
different.
they do like a six string with a capo like math rock vibe kind of tuning, and like that seems weird for a Sleep Token song.
Yeah. So like I
It's
really liked that. And it was unexpected. I didn't expect it. So that was cool. And then Infinite Baths is kind of a really good track from start to finish, and it really ends the record sort of on like a heavy note. And then the whole looping thing where like if you put Infinite Baths into Look to Windward, it like merges into each other. The cycle
oh really?
continues or whatever the shit. Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
didn't
pretty
notice
cool.
that. That's cool.
The when they started releasing the hints and all that shit on Apple Music, I don't know if you saw any of that. Like they were releasing codes in their lyric videos or something on or in the lyrics on Apple
Oh
Music.
no, I didn't
And then
notice that.
people were like putting the clues together and all this shit. And yeah, there was like they've been doing some weird cryptic shit, which I kind of like that. Which I think maybe that's what sort of appeals to the Swifties, since like Taylor Swift is kind of known for doing the same thing. And I only know this. My wife is obsessed with Taylor Swift and solving all of the Easter eggs and all that bullshit, which never end up being true. I had to watch the whole freaking American Music Awards thing because she was supposed to pop out of like of a I don't know, just pop out of a cake or something and announce a new album. I don't fucking know what they were expecting, but
There was something
that
supposed to
did not
happen.
happen. But no, I
Yeah.
mean it is cool. Like I appreciate sort of all the cryptic clue stuff that like she does, and then like Sleep Token seems to also be doing. So
I feel
that
like that's
stuff
a
is cool, and it gets people engaged. And honestly, it's brilliant for on their part, because then people are constantly listening to streaming their music, looking at the lyrics, looking for like things that are out of place, and I'm sure
yeah.
that really boosted their stream counts too.
Honestly, I feel like that's bringing that up is kind of a good transition into like kind of the topic we were like intending to cover. It just that is like the growth of these like anonymous bands, and I feel like that's a good point for like where they've come from and like why people seem to like them. It's just I think there's something about the like mystery and the puzzles and like the cryptic nature of things that
Yeah,
people just are
it's
like,
engaging.
what is this?
Cause like
And
I was thinking of this the other day, like, and I think something triggered me to think this, and maybe it was somebody was talking about it on a TikTok video, so maybe this isn't necessarily a fully original thought, but a band like Dayseeker, who we kind of mentioned, is putting out similar music in a way, like blending sort of the different styles and doing it well. Um, in some cases I think they put out some better songs. In other cases, obviously, it's subjective. But
yeah,
like regardless, I feel like anybody who listens to this type of music would probably agree that Dayseeker, whether you put Sleep Token ahead of Dayseeker or not, like the gap there isn't that far in my opinion.
yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, they're in
so
like kind of same wheelhouse
yeah.
of music
So
there.
like so Sleep Token hits number 1 on the Billboard charts, and Dayseeker is relatively unknown.
Yeah,
Relatively,
yeah,
comparatively, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're obviously they're known in like the metalcore scene, but like if I walked up to a Taylor Swift fan and said like, "Oh, how about Pale Moonlight by Dayseeker? How about that?" They're gonna look at me like I have 10 heads. So like I where if I mention Sleep Token, there's a good chance that they're like, "Oh, I love that! Like, I love that song, Dangerous. That's so yeah, it's real sexy." Whatever the fuck. Like, it's just or Caramel or whatever. Like the big one was there for a little while, but like, I don't know. To me, I don't understand, and that's kind of where we sort of came up with the topic that we were aiming to talk about on this episode. Like, I is it the mysterious aspect of it? Like, is that the element that sets them apart that makes them more appealing? Is it the thrill of the hunt? Is it the anonymity? Or is it just the blending of styles? But if it's the blending of styles, then why isn't Dayseeker bigger? Why isn't
Yeah,
Why aren't
that's a
some of
good
these
point.
like? It's just it's interesting. And then we sort of touched on this a little bit too, like when we were sort of making a very like 5 minutes before this, making a very generic plan for what we're gonna try to talk about. The band President, they had no music, none,
Yeah,
and they already
they
had like
didn't seem like they were actually like no one knew they were a band.
and they already had like almost 100,000 followers on social media. Literally no music, like a couple little clips of a dude wearing a mask, sitting in a chair, smoking a cigarette, and people are like, "This is definitely something I want to listen to." And it's like, why? Like you don't even know what it sounds like yet. And
Yeah,
then people were sort of grouping that, like then people started drawing parallels, like, "Oh, is this Sleep Token? Like, is this secretly Sleep Token? This, that, and the other thing." So was it the sleep token bump that boosted these guys? Was it just the fact that they are anonymous and mysterious, similar in the same vein to sleep token that boosted these guys? Then they released one song. I want to go look at this real quick. I want to see how many streams that song has, or just
yeah,
on Spotify, if
it
it,
is.
if it even shows.
It's it is crazy that I didn't realize that they had the 100,000 followers like before they actually released music. I thought you meant like after they released that like that first video.
No, it was
I
they
didn't
didn't
realize
even
that was
release
before it was.
music yet.
That's
It was
crazy.
insane. Like
Yeah, so like
they had
you're
a TikTok page with like hundreds of thousands of followers or whatever the shit, and they didn't even have a song out yet.
yeah, that's crazy to
They
be a
already have
band with no music that has more.
604,000 monthly listeners on Spotify already. They have one song.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, like
Like,
this song is interesting and it's
sure,
cool,
but it's not like
but
mind blowing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's good, and it is in the it is in that sleep token vein. And they're always going to get lumped with sleep token because of the mysterious bullshit. But like,
Yeah, the
not
fact
that
that
it's
they're a
bullshit. I
masked
think it's
band.
cool. But
Yeah, the fact
like,
that they're a masked like anonymous band in like the metalcore vein, I feel like it's pretty impossible to not lump them in with Sleep Token.
right. And there was sort of people before, when they were coming out and there was literally no music. It's just a guy in a mask sitting on a chair smoking a cigarette and everyone's like, "Follow." People are like, "Is this Sleep Token?" And I think maybe that boosted them a little bit. But it's that mystery factor and it's brilliant on and I know who the guy is because it's all over the internet. Like I know who the president is. We're not going to release anybody's
Yeah, we're not doxing anyone.
identities on this. Yeah. But like everybody just immediately was like, "Is this vessel? Is this sleep token? Is this that?" So I'm sure they got a bump off of that, and like, I don't. It's just it blows my mind. It
Yeah,
really blows my mind.
it's I was kind of thinking about this too that just like I think the excitement of like, oh, who is this masked person that's singing these things? And I feel like that's definitely a part of it. But I think another part is that like I wonder if because it makes the music more honest, that it's like the person, like the people performing, they're not afraid because they're like behind a mask. So then it's like, well, people maybe eventually will find out who I am, and probably will be the case. But right now, I'm anonymous, and so I can write honest music about how I feel, not afraid that like I'm gonna go out in public and people be like, "Boo, your music sucks," because like they don't know you and they don't know who you are to be able to like do that. So I feel
So
like
like
maybe there's
freedom of expression behind a mask because
yeah,
nobody like because you're like it's almost like you're hiding in plain sight.
yeah, and I think like for me, I would just be like crippling in fear on if I was put on a stage and be like, "Hey, here's a building full of 12,000 people, sing." I would just like sweat and shiver and just stare
Just
blankly into the
die.
crowd.
Just die on
So,
stage.
I feel like maybe having the mask too is this sort of like layer of protection that like makes
It's
you
an
more
invisibility
willing.
cloak.
Yeah, like it makes you more comfortable probably. And I don't know if
Yeah.
maybe that just like adds to the whole like experience of the music. It's like you feel like you're getting more honest music, and then like when they're performing on stage, they're more able to like I don't know, feel comfortable like being themselves. And so
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's like people that, you know, you want to be a certain way, but you feel like society will think like I'm a weirdo and like people won't like me being this way, but I can watch this band that's doing it and like they're behind these masks and they're like, being goobers on stage and people are loving it. And so then almost like, I don't know if there's some sort of like draw with that. And like this is purely just speculation, but I just, kind of a gut
No, I
feeling I
think
have.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Whether or not that's like why people gravitate to it, that's probably up for interpretation. But like, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and to take it one step further, and here's my Coheed and Cambria mention of the episode. You know, uh, Claudio from Coheed sort of masked his true story, his true life experience, and all that stuff, and wrote it into fiction. And that's sort of the Amory Wars. He mirrored the main two original characters, Coheed and Cambria, after his parents. And then he was Claudio, which he actually gave his own name. But, and sort
Yeah.
of like the different experiences that he had, he masked it in fiction. And, Sleep Token is a band that does that as well, with the God is sleep and he is the vessel for this God and whatever, that and the other thing. They just take it one step further and also cosplay on stage. So, like, it is sort of, we've had similar, this sort of masking of your true emotions, your true self, sort of in fiction within prog and within rock and heavy music. Any of these sort of storytelling type albums, these concept records, you get a lot of that in prog. But sometimes it's just oh, we just created a story. Where in other scenarios, it's like I want to tell my story. I just don't feel comfortable doing it like out, just plain
Yeah.
text, like, here's
Yeah.
my life,
I'm
so I'm
gonna
going to
like
mask it.
mask it a little bit into a
Yeah.
fiction story.
Right. So I think there's a lot of sort of parallels to draw between, what some of these other prog bands, rock bands, heavy bands are doing and sort of what Sleep Token's doing. They just sort of take it one step further and mask their entire identities. Which we've seen in metal before. Like, if you want to take it back to the early 2000s, maybe. When did Slipknot come out? When was Slipknot? Was that
I,
90s even?
I was gonna say like probably late '90s, early 2000s. I guess we're talking
Yeah,
about like whether like we're talking about as soon as they started or once they got like enough, kind of
because
like
they sort of
pull
like, I
behind the name.
remember I remember how big they were when I first started getting into heavy music. Like, I remember being in an arcade, like when I was in like elementary school, I want to even say, and there being a jukebox in there, and the older kids that were in there were always playing like Metallica and stuff like that. But then they were like, then the Slipknot band came out, and they were like, oh, there's these guys are great. These guys are so heavy. It looks like their first self titled record came out in '99. So
Okay, so late '90s, early
most
2000s.
prominent probably in the early 2000s. Um, but I feel like their popularity in a lot of ways probably also came from their anonymity. All these guys on stage wearing horror masks, and like you go to any genre, strangely enough. And like you go to a country show, you'll see a guy wearing a cowboy hat wearing a Slipknot shirt. Like they are like when I have conversations with people who don't listen to metal, I can think of one specifically. I went to dinner for my sister's birthday once, and one of her friends' husbands was there, and we didn't know each other. So it's like when you're trying to start a conversation with somebody, you're trying to find a
Yeah.
common ground, right? Like we kind of had this conversation a little earlier, but um, we started with like sports, and it was like, oh, we both played golf, so we talked about that a little bit. And then he was like, well, what kind of music do you listen to? And I was like, anytime you're asked that by someone who doesn't listen to the same music as you, especially as a metalhead, it's hard to like how do you tell oh, I listen to like progressive metal and this that, and it's like that doesn't mean anything to anybody. So you usually just sort of lump it into like, oh, I kind of listen to like some heavier music and stuff like that. That's usually where
Yeah.
you start. And that's almost like the dipping your toes in the water to see what they come back with. Because if they're like, oh, like what you like death metal, deathcore, once they start like throwing some of the cores out there and stuff like that, you're like, okay, they have a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah,
But
they would
usually,
probably understand the bands that I would throw their way.
usually generically, the response you get from someone who doesn't listen to heavy music is, "Oh, like heavy bands? You mean like Slipknot?"
Yeah, they are
Almost
usually.
every time.
It's like
It's
Slipknot
either
and
that or
Metallica
like
are two of like
Metallica.
like
I've gotten like Five Finger Death Punch because they're kind of like strangely popular with certain crowds, and but like almost every time, any non-heavy music person knows who Slipknot is. I feel like
yeah. I feel like they
so.
had their thing with like. I mean, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, like they've actually have some songs that have been played on the radio.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they've been played on the radio, and like I think also there was kind of a whole like in the 2000s and stuff, just like oh this sort of like creepy horror band that's gaining popularity is we're questioning whether or not people should be listening to this kind of music. And I feel like it was
Is it
similar with
satanic?
like
Is it
GTA.
causing
That's
our
like, oh, you're
children
playing
to?
violent video games and they're listening to music with people who have creepy masks. Like, are these people gonna like do harm to others and stuff? So I feel like
Right.
they were kind of like under that lens,
They were
whether it
put in
was
a
like,
spotlight of like, is listening to this music going to cause your teenagers to go on a murder spree? Coming
yeah,
up now on the news at 10. Like
yeah.
it's
And so I think they got like a lot of that like negative press, but then like,
I feel like
I,
negative press breeds like a following from like rebellious people. Like it's just
yeah.
like, oh, stupid news saying that I'm gonna go listen to this myself. Obviously you're gonna have your sections of the world of culture, whatever the shit you want to, your religious types and whatever that are gonna like look at anything where they can deem it satanic or whatever, and just like I'm sure they hate Sleep Token in the same vein. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as they see a picture of people, in dark masks and robes and it doesn't look, it looks heavy, it looks dark, it
Yeah,
looks
it looks scary
satanic
and
if you want to call
freaky
it
and
that. But like nobody takes the time to understand why or understand. I don't know if you saw it, and I don't know the name of the artist. I guess I'm just segmenting right into this part too. Um, I don't remember the name of the artist. It's a popular artist. I believe she's like a Latin singer. I'm not 100% sure exactly what her genre is because I've never heard of her before. But she was like number 4 on the Billboard chart while Sleep Token was number 1. And she posted something to her Instagram story, like basically not shitting on Sleep Token, but like, who are these guys and why are they ahead of me and why are, I'm better than this and how am I getting, basically jealousy, that's
yeah.
where it came from. And Sleep Token fans pounced on this girl, like just immediately in all of her, like she had to turn comments off and stuff because they're just blowing up her feed with every. So then rather than apologize or not even apologize, but like walk it back or just like move on from it, she posts this thing about saying how like she thinks that they're like it's cultural appropriation that he's painting his skin black.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So then again, Sleep Token fans just started pouncing on her again. And then she posted this video on her Instagram story of like just looking at the clouds and then talking and saying like, like to all the sleepies or whatever. I don't know. She didn't call them. I don't know what she called them. I don't even know. Sleepers. I don't even know. Um, or yeah, she's like, I didn't. I just saw a picture and like I know he's a white guy and so like I would never do that, but like I don't know anything about these artists, and I don't hate on any artists. I want everybody to succeed, and like I wouldn't do that, but like a half
Half
like a
backpedal.
half-assed like apology or whatever. And again, Sleep Token fans are just like all over TikTok, like this was a fake apology, like this, that, and the other. So that's currently ongoing, which is real interesting. But but yeah, that's just sort of the parallel I was trying to draw with that is that's an active example of somebody looking from the outside in on something that they don't understand, don't know anything about, and like pushing false, like that's not, he's not wearing blackface. Like that's the craziest thing I've ever heard somebody say. If
Yeah.
you know anything about Sleep Token and like the lore and whatever, and if you've ever seen anyone wear a mask at anything, you usually paint the face underneath the mask to conceal the identity
Yeah,
underneath
that's
the
like
mask.
saying
That's so
Batman is
common.
cultural appropriation because
Right.
he
Like that's
paints his
so
around his
stupid.
eyes black. Like no one
So
has ever
stupid.
said that. And it's like
Yeah.
that's not it's about the anonymity and like
Yeah.
I mean the whole thing too is like sleep is darkness. And it's
Yeah.
like
Like
so
he's
they're
playing a character.
yeah, it's like they're trying to like convey darkness and like avoid kind of thing. And that's why like it's all black robes and stuff.
Right.
Like that's the point. Like they're not trying to be, they're not like, oh, we're trying to be black guys. It's
Yeah,
like they
just
just
insane accusation from
yeah,
somebody who clearly does not have a lot of intelligence,
it's
but
not yeah,
or is just
that is a wild
deeply steeped
claim.
in jealousy over something that like you're not, like these popular artists don't always, like it's nice to see, and this is just a further, like something we've also talked about in the past with how like metal's coming into the mainstream, Knocked Loose and Poppy being on Jimmy Kimmel and just all this stuff, like metal is sort of coming, like having an up and coming sort of rise situation. Bad Omens is getting real popular, like there are these bands that have heavy sides that are a little bit more appealing to the masses that are climbing up the ranks sort of in pop culture. And so you're going to see, I think you're going to see more bands start to crack like different Billboard charts and stuff like that. Bands like President showing that you don't even have to release music to be popular. Like that's crazy. Like, so some of these mainstream artists that put out their bullshit copy paste garbage and then like just expect to constantly be on charts without really any effort. They don't write their songs, they don't write their beats, they don't do anything. They show up and they're a face attached to mindless music
Yeah.
and just expect to always be in the top whatever the shit, are going to start getting overtaken by real artists, and they're just going to have to deal with that shit.
Yeah, it is that is wild to me like such a claim like that, especially given like not listening to their music. Like I don't know, if you listen to it and could see and make like an argument for it, then like, I'd be willing to hear you out and say like, ah, maybe maybe it is cultural appropriation or, maybe it is
Right.
whatever like shitty thing that you're claiming that it is. But like listening to all of their albums many, many times, at no point did I think like, oh, these guys are definitely leaning into cultural appropriation and like they're trying to be like malicious about it and like it's clearly like this is just like a shtick of costumes and they're like wearing black stuff because it's mysterious and creepy and like it kind of leads into that like oh we don't know who this person is like he's a shadowy figure and it's not
Yeah.
like trying to lean into any sort of particular culture. I guess like technically metal culture in the
Right.
black stuff like wear all black
Yeah.
kind of
Honestly.
so it's like I guess he's culturally appropriating metalheads but
Right.
but like aside from that like no it's just kind of like that is a outlandish crazy claim to make to just try to like claw away at a band's fame, which is like, in my opinion, well deserved for the fact that
Yeah.
they've been able to bridge that gap and make music that Swifties enjoy as well as
Right.
metalheads.
We were
And
calling them, when we went and saw them, we were calling them the Woo Girls because it was like, it was funny. I went to the Taylor Swift Eras tour with my wife, and incredible show, honestly. Whether you like the music or not, it's impressive feat and an impressive performance. Um, I think the Sleep Token show was probably the closest metal show I've ever got to something like that. Like, as far as like production quality and just crowd energy. And there were a lot, at Taylor Swift, it's like in between songs, during songs, there's just these girls just screaming. It was like that at Sleep Token. Like it was crazy. I was like, wow, the Woo girls are out. Like they're here. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
crazy. So
and I think like to me that's cool to see. And maybe it's just because like both of us, coming from a place of like being metalheads and seeing like metal's getting its limelight. It's like finally people
yeah.
are starting to appreciate the music that we were like made fun of for like
Yeah.
listening to in middle school and high school, and we were like the weird kids and stuff, and now it's like, oh, it's not so weird now, is it? You guys
And
are all here and enjoying this too, and it's kind of like
it
it
is
feels nice.
different. It is different to like go to a show for a band that you know is usually when you're going to a show of that size, it's for a band you respect, like a band who's been around for like a Metallica. You know what I mean? Like it's a band that's been around for a while that maybe you don't like listen to them religiously now, but you're going for the experience because they pioneered the genre. They got, they are what propped up the bands that you listen to today, and it's a cool experience. You want to go see them. Again, that's not me saying like any of the bands we listen to is better than Metallica or had a better career or whatever. I'm just trying to like point out like usually it's a band like Metallica who's been around for 175 years that like is the band that they have to put in 175 years of work to be able to start doing shows like that. Where Sleep Token, it's like, oh, somehow 2 years and now they're selling out Wembley Stadium. I mean, it's been more than 2 years, but you understand, like
Yeah,
comparatively, a much shorter route to get there.
yeah.
So like, we just went to a show. You and I, we just went to Between the Buried and Me's Coma Alaska tour, which was incredible. And Between the
Oh,
Buried and
so
Me,
good.
to me, is like S tier, like top tier, like progressive metal, any metal genre really. For me, like Between the Buried and Me is my Metallica. Um, and
Yeah.
like, so you go to a show like that for a band who has earned their stripes, who has arguably three, and you could probably argue for more. I guess some people might argue for less, but three all time progressive metal records, in my opinion. I'm not going to
Yeah.
name them. You can guess. Um, but like, they're in a tiny ass old church. Granted, the energy nuts. I mean, it's sold out. People bouncing off the walls, bouncing off each other, having a damn good time. That's how Between the Buried and Me shows go, and they've earned that following. They've earned sort of they've earned where they're at. But my question, or not my question, but it's like to me they should be selling out Wembley Stadium, but that music isn't as popular or whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's tough for me to fathom that any band in that vein, and I'm not saying that Sleep Token is in the same vein as Between the Buried and Me, but like Between the Buried and Me blends genres. They just usually lean on the heavier side, not as much, their Coma Ecliptic record is probably the closest that you're gonna get to uh more chill Between the Buried and Me
Yeah.
album. But like, you know, the reality is they never will do that, or never likely will be able to do something like that. And yet I'm sure Sleep Token holds Between the Buried and Me in like higher regard than themselves. So it's like,
Yeah, it is
I
funny
don't
to
know.
like have bands that like probably coming up in the scene. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly like their particular influences and like what they listen to and their favorite bands and stuff, but generally I feel like if you're in a progressive metal band, you idolize other bands in the progressive metal scene. And so like being like you said relatively new in that space and coming to like arguably the highest tier that progressive metal has achieved, that in so many like so few years compared to some of the other bands that have been around like Dream Theater and stuff, like they're also a very successful, very
Right.
well known progressive metal band, but even still like they're not selling out Wembley Stadium either.
No.
And then
No.
like you said, probably I would venture to guess that people in Sleep Token enjoy Dream Theater's music and
Right.
probably held them in this esteem that like I idolize this band, and then to like surpass them like to a crazy extent as well from a fan
Yeah.
base is a pretty
Yes.
wild thing.
Dream Theater definitely pioneered so many things that even bands like Between the Buried and Me are doing. So it's like, you know, I feel like Dream Theater is almost a precursor to BT Bam, and BT Bam is kind of a precursor to Sleep Token and bands like Sleep Token. Again, not in the same, they're not in the same vein, genre, whatever. I mean, they kind of are, they're adjacent to each other. But like you just said, oh, Dream Theater hasn't sold out Wembley Stadium. Dream Theater's coming to Pittsburgh, and they're playing like a venue that usually is reserved for like musicals and shit,
Yeah, it's
like a
or like
theater.
yeah, and like symphony kind
Yeah,
of and like musicals and stuff, like performing arts
and
kind of stuff.
yeah, and nowhere near as many seats as like so when Sleep Token was here, they played in a basketball stadium, so and they sold it out in like 30 minutes. Where Dream Theater's tickets went on sale last week, and I checked today because I'm thinking about go. I'm probably gonna go.
I really want to go to
And
that. I feel like that's such a cool venue for a metal act to be, and I could see it being very theatrical too. So I'm like, I definitely would like to go.
yeah, but there's like 90% of the tickets still available. So it's interesting to me that Sleep Token, even for this recent tour that they've announced, and they're playing a bunch of big, basketball arenas and hockey arenas, and these massive venues comparatively to what we see like Between the Buried and Me in, where it's like a few hundred versus like 10,000 plus, um, they sold out all of their tickets for all of these venues within like 30 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
it's
It
just I don't understand how, and like I would have thought Dream Theater would have did similar numbers because of just who they are, how popular they are. Like my neighbor hit me up about them coming to Pittsburgh Dream Theater, and he's more of like an old head, listens to like, older prog and your Yeses and your Steve Vai, and like
yeah,
where
you would think
Dream
that
Theater sort
like
of is like the bridge between like old prog, new prog, old prog metal, old prog rock, new prog rock. So it's like they have more popular appeal, but still are nowhere close to Sleep Token.
yeah, that one is like pretty baffling to me because Dream Theater does have that like fans of like Rush and other like really
Yeah,
big bands that are
Pink
like
Floyd, like
progressive
yeah, like my dad knows who Dream
bands.
Theater is.
Yeah, and it's, so it's
Like
like having that kind of stuff because I mean with like Led Zeppelin and Rush being so big back in the day. I mean they're still big, but not like currently performing and stuff anymore. At least not that I'm aware of. I mean I guess maybe there's some people left in the bands that are like still doing stuff performing,
I would
but
assume, yeah,
like they're not like putting out new music and doing that kind
right,
of stuff, but like they their music being like generation defining, like that's what I the music I grew up on. And so you figure like Dream Theater being kind of like a natural progression of Rush that it feels like
yeah.
very like inspired by.
And then
And
like you listen to Dream Theater, and then you listen to bands like Between the Buried and Me. I keep bringing them up, but like it's still fresh in the mind because we were just there. Like I was listening to Dream Theater's new record. It's what the hell is it called? It's like starts with a P. I don't know why I can't think of it. It's like Parasomnia. I was like, it's Paras something. Parasomnia. And like you listen to riffs in some of the stuff in that new record, and you're like, that could be a Between the Buried and Me song. Like it goes into clean vocals, like very clean. They're not like doing growls and shit, but it goes into clean vocals, and you're like, okay, this is Dream Theater. But like Portnoy's an all time drummer, uh,
yeah,
and so like you hear some of those drum riffs, and you're like, there's no way that like this guy didn't inspire a lot of Blake's drumming. Um, I mean, and just some of the riffs too. I mean, just across the board, really. It's like this was clearly. I mean, Petrucci is your guitarist, so it's like I mean, how
Yeah,
many
it's
guys in metal play his guitar, signature guitars? You know what I mean? Like it's like
yeah.
so many of those guys grew up wanting to be these guys.
Yeah, and it is funny.
So
And
like
maybe it's just
the
because
influence is obvious in the music, and you
yeah.
know that's why I was because I was listening to that record like, okay, am I gonna buy tickets because they're playing that record in its entirety. Dream Theater is on this tour, and then they're playing another set of like a mix of stuff. But
No, that's cool.
as I'm listening to it, I'm like, that like sounds so familiar to like some of these Between the Buried and Me riffs on Coma and even in Alaska. Like, I mean, and that's another thing. I keep tangenting, but whatever. Like, Alaska holds up so fucking well today. Like, listening to
Yeah.
Alaska in its entirety and just like, wow, this record still stands the test of time. And it was written in 2000 or released in 2005, like 20 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're old as shit, by the way.
But I think like maybe what makes Sleep Token so popular versus Dream Theater, like just using them as the example because they're kind of this like band that you would expect to be like the cream of the crop, the most famous of progressive metal bands, is that maybe because Dream Theater kind of has a lot of the like inspired by, and we sound a lot like bands from like your mom and dad's generation, whereas Sleep Token is like, yeah, we're inspired by them, but we're taking a lot of stuff from popular stuff that the kids are into. Then
Right.
like because
We
that's
got the
like
kids coming to bop with us.
yeah, and so I think like you've got, these kids that are, getting into the angsty teen years and listening to music in their room, being like, "Ah, my parents suck," and
Yeah.
and stuff that they're discovering this music, and because it has some like poppy elements, they're like, "Oh, this is cool," and then they kind of like before they know it, it's like, "Oh, I guess I like metal," and
Yeah,
so I
because yeah, I
think
mean
that's
that's true. They
probably
have some of the like you know some of the songs. It's like oh this you know pop singing, and then it's like after the pop singing, it's like oh here's this random trap type like
yeah,
section, and then it's all this random like funky groove thing, and then
and
oh
then at
here's a
the
breakdown, and
end,
we're get real heavy, and and we're so
yeah,
angry, and then like the very next song is like bells and chimes and clean singing and sexy little groove and like oh we can dance to this and it's like oh now we're angry again and it's like it is interesting and it's like all within one song too, so if you find a section of a song that you like, because that's one thing for me too is especially in prog when songs are so long and stuff and like these bands are traversing different genres within one track, if you find a part of a song that you like, usually the other parts of that song, especially if it's a well composed song, are if you even if it's not a style that you enjoy, are going to grow on you because it all blends together with that part that you do like. And I feel like that is almost a forced gateway into different genres.
yeah,
Like I probably listen to more pop music now than I ever have, partially because my wife and that's what that's what she listens to and whatever. But like also I feel like I connect more with pop music now because of bands like Sleep Token, because of bands like Dayseeker, where I enjoy most of their catalog, and then like they do something poppy, and then I see something similar that to what they did in like something that Boy Genius is doing, or something that Phoebe Bridgers did, or something that Taylor Swift did. Even like it's interesting that like it's almost like Sleep Token's been my gateway to pop in the
yeah.
same way that Sleep Token has been people who listen to pop music's gateway to metal. So it's like, oh, we're just
Yeah,
one big happy community. Like
I do like that it's like a
they're bringing the
double.
world together.
Yeah, I like that it's a double-sided gateway, that it's getting metalheads into pop stuff. And I because I do think like metal is a genre of music that has kind of this like air of a elitism to it, and there like for sure are a lot of people, and like I'm not going to deny there have been points in my life where I was just like, oh, it's not metal, it's garbage and stuff. And I've obviously like just enjoying music generally. I like no longer have that mentality. I like listening to music of pretty much all types. So I no longer have that, but I think that there is a lot of that in metal, that like people who listen to metal generally just enjoy music, and so they get this sort of like oh, well, it's not my kind of metal, so it sucks. And
Yeah.
and I think like Sleep Token is making this like two-way gate that is like you said, getting metalheads into being like, oh, maybe pop's not so crappy like I had initially thought, and maybe I should give it a fair chance. And then like
Mm.
fans of pop music are hearing this and then hearing that like crazy riff at the end and being like, oh, that was kind of cool. And
Yeah.
then being like, maybe I like metal, and coming over, and then it's like we kind of have this sort of like kumbaya moment that it's like we can
Cause
all
you,
agree we enjoy Sleep Token, and I can agree that your music, your pop music isn't bad, and you can agree that my metal music isn't scary or bad. And
and it's interesting too, and like these things are just popping into my head, and I'm just spitting them out as they do, and I apologize.
no,
Um,
that's what it's
but
for.
like
We're here to,
some of the popular, like usually the popular parts of things in pop music or like rap music, hip hop music, trap music, stuff like that is the percussion, right? Like it's like, oh,
yeah,
that was an awesome beat, and two is like an insane percussionist.
yeah,
So like maybe that's even some of it too. It's like, oh, the drums are so insane that like, you hear all this poppy stuff that you can relate to, and then when it goes into the heavy part, the drums are just like this standout part of it. And it's just like you start like bobbing your head to it. You're just like, this is impressive. And it's like, oh, maybe I do like metal. So like that could be sort of part of it as well. I had another thought too, sort of coming back into, so I think like the accessibility is kind of what we're overarchingly talking about here. Like they're making metal music accessible to other people, fans of other genres. That's obvious. But back to sort of the anonymity part, like which is kind of, the overarching theme of this episode a little bit is like, why is being anonymous like popular now, or is that what's making these guys popular? Did they find some sort of special sauce? And like one thing that pops into my brain is, you started talking about a little bit about like the social media aspect of things, right? And
yeah,
it's like everything's on social media, so it's like if you hate something, it's out there. If you love something, it's out there. You're getting spammed shit 24/7, whatever. Nobody's life is private. Nothing is private. If Justin Bieber sneezes on a frog, like that's on the internet for like a 14-day news cycle. Like I don't know why I came up with that example, but regardless, like no matter what happens, everybody's life is online. And then you insert this mysterious band that, stays anonymous, and people make it their freaking life's mission to expose them and find out who they are. But then there's other people who make it their life mission to like theorize who are they. And then there's people who are like, well, let's dive deep into the lore and let's do this, that, and the other thing. And now all of a sudden you're creating a community around this anonymous, like mysterious sort of thing that you've created that just happens to have music with Easter eggs, and you created your own alphabet and you put things out there and people are like deciphering it. It's like
yeah,
in Christmas Story where you sit around the fucking radio and get your decoder pin out. Like people are doing that shit for Sleep Token stuff. And it's
yeah,
like in this world that's sort of like built around overexposure, and like the algorithms are out there just spamming everything into your face about everybody. Somehow bands like Sleep Token have remained relatively anonymous and like leave all of their stuff up to interpretation. They don't do interviews. They don't talk to fans at shows. Like, not really. Vessel, I don't think
yeah,
has ever spoken to the crowd. So they
yeah,
leave sort of everything up to interpretation, and it's created this community of people who theorize and people who explore the lore and people who do all this, that, and the other thing. So it's like you've built this thing around you that I feel like draws people in even more. And I think that's more relevant now than it was back when Slipknot was doing it, back when Kiss was doing it. Like the anonymity was a thing and they drew people in and that was cool and that was this thing. But now I feel like it's even more so because everything is so in your face and out there, like in today's society, that like
yeah.
it's
It's almost
almost
like
like a,
people are like, I wish I had this anonymity,
yeah, it's
and
like a reprieve from like information just being thrown in your face. It's like, no, oh, I have to like work for this info. And I don't even know if the info that I worked for is real, but you know, Sleep Token Fan 69 on Reddit thinks that I'm right, but like Sleep Token Fan 74 doesn't think that I'm right. And like we're going back and forth and we're like having public discourse and like constructive conversations, not always like, oh, you're fucking wrong, whatever, but like it's like people come together. And I feel like that was even more evident when their identities did come out. Again, we're not doxing anybody, but like when their identities did come out and people, for the most part in the fandom, rallied around protecting those identities instead of like exposing them. Obviously, you're always going to have assholes that are out there like spamming their
Yeah, yeah.
identities and whatever. But like this anonymity, this whole mystery, this whole like extended lore, a lot of it is created from fans' speculation.
Yeah,
And
that is true. Yeah.
I think that that's very unique in the scene. And I think like that's why Taylor Swift fans are so ravenous. I keep bringing her up, but like it's relevant in this conversation. You know, she'll release a freaking post and it's like, oh well, this letter's capitalized and it shouldn't be, and oh, she put like a symbol here that, oh, we've seen this symbol before. It was in this music video that she released in 2010, and that symbol was on this thing, which means that she's going to do that. Like, it's crazy, but she's built a community around this shit, and I feel like Sleep Token has capitalized, like they have the special sauce of anonymity, which helped build this community in this overstimulated, overexposed, over in your face algorithm type world, while also creating music that is accessible to all genres. And
Yeah.
a band like President comes out and tries to do the same thing. All the secretive posts, all the little symbols and hints and secrets and whatever, like, and immediately becomes popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely something to it, and I think, like you were saying about the communities and stuff too. I feel like in the world where everything is like, everything's online, and most people's interactions with other people are predominantly online outside of work. Um, and so I feel like people want a sense of like belonging and a community that has like similar interests. And if you've got this group of people that are they're all kind of like-minded. They're all interested in the same band as you, and they all have like the same goal of like, let's dig into this lore. And they're all into concept albums and all this stuff. Then you kind of like, I found my people, and you have
Yeah.
this now like social circle of people who are all like ravenous too for the same type of music, and it becomes this like, cool, this is awesome. Like, I not only do I love the music, but I also love the people that I'm interacting with who all have the same interest. I feel like there's a lot of that as well that kind of feeds into, in addition to like the masks and anonymity shtick, there's like the community that forms out of it to try and band together. That's like an additional thing. It's like kind of all of it seems to be this perfect storm that somehow like they've caught lightning in a bottle.
And now other bands are trying to copy that, and
Yeah.
it seems to be, at least in a, again, there's one song from this band, they have like almost 650,000 monthly
Yeah,
listeners
and I mean,
to one song.
yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I mean, it's working from my standpoint. Like, I'm curious what their other singles they'll release are
Yeah.
gonna be, and when they inevitably have a first EP or full length, like, what that's gonna sound like, what they're, when they start touring because they have enough music out, what like a show of theirs is gonna
Yeah.
look like, and
Yeah, they're playing, I think Download Fest or something is going to be their first show.
that's crazy for a
Yeah, first
first
show.
show.
Again, the artist, the person is in another band that does tour and stuff. So like it's not like his first show ever, but like it's still like
Yeah,
a first show under a project that has released one song, and your first show is Download. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this is an industry plant," and like this, that, and the other thing. But I don't think it's an industry plant. I think it's a an artist who sees this rise of like, how of Sleep Token and how quickly sort of keeping an anonymous sort of shtick going and like doing the teasers and doing this, like how well that's worked, And also that song is very accessible. So it's like, why wouldn't you like, are we going to see more bands doing this, do you think? Like, is this
I
like, is it going to
yeah.
get old? If it does, are they going to saturate the market? Is Sleep Token going to tank? Is this like economics? Like, what exactly? Like,
Yeah, what are we dealing with here?
is there like a diminished return for the mystery band? Like, is there a thing where it's like, oh, next year we're gonna have like 3 or 4 new mystery bands, and now everybody's just like, this sucks. Now I don't want to do this anymore.
I just
Like,
hope that like equated to something is like I feel like there was that zombie craze that like you had all these like zombie movies, zombie comics, The Walking Dead
right,
became popular and then everybody's like we need to get a piece of this zombie pie. And then it kind of like oversaturated the market and like The Walking Dead was like, "Here, let's have 72 and a half spin-offs that all kind of suck." And like they kind of ran into the ground and then people sort of got fatigued and same thing with like I feel like the superhero movies have kind of gotten to the point where a lot of people are like, okay, I've had enough, and they don't
right,
seem as popular. Then I do wonder if like that will happen maybe eventually, is like people see that it works and a avenue that they could pursue to get their music out there and get popular. And then eventually, one too many bands will do it, and people will be like, all right, this is enough. And then
yeah,
nobody likes anonymous bands anymore. I could see
right.
that happening, but I hope it
Uh,
doesn't.
what I feel like, and then like, what do this is we're just riffing on this, but like in that moment, say that happens, and I feel like there's a chance that it does because I mean, I think there are artists out there now. Obviously, if you're already a band, right? Like if you're a band that's been releasing music for years and you've sort of never caught on, like, but your identity's out there, whatever. Like you can't take your band and then like we're anonymous now because you're not. That's not how that works. But
Yeah.
like rebranding under a different band and coming out and being like, I guarantee you, there's bands that are weighing this right now. Like I guarantee you, there
Yeah.
are bands that are like, we're not catching on. We have like 5,000 monthly listeners. Like some of our music, like people relate to, but whatever. Like let's, oh, we're disbanding. Oh no, and then like pop back up as like some random anonymous band and start posting cryptic shit. No, check us out. Here we come. And like, I do think that there are going to be more like this. I do think that it's going to get old. And I think at that point, it's the shtick that's old, not the music. And now
Yeah.
you have to rely on your music. And in that scenario, I think that's the moment where maybe Sleep Token takes the masks off.
Yeah. I've kind of been wondering about that. Like, will they get to a thing in their, because like their albums seem to have this like progression of story arc and they have like different costumes. And like as time has gone on, like the mask has gotten
It's like being
smaller
eaten
and is,
away. Yeah.
yeah. So I do wonder if like, 2 albums
There is an
from
end.
now, there's no more mask or something.
Yeah.
They become themselves.
And
And
a lot of the lyrics too were like clearly like, you know, what's the word where it's like beyond the fourth wall or whatever. Like what's the phrase where
like
it's
meta.
like I get where it's like I should know this. I don't know why I'm struggling. But where it's like, you're in a story, like you're watching a movie and then like the actor is playing a character, but then he looks at the camera as the actor.
Oh yeah, like fourth wall breaking
Fourth
kind of.
wall, yeah, yeah. So like there are some like fourth wall breaks in the lyrics in this new record where he's talking specifically to the fans and like, you know, you shout my real name to try to get a rise from me. Like he is being himself in that moment
Yeah.
and saying to the fans like, I hear you. Like you're not being slick. Um so like I do think there's a point where, and like I said, like we've said, like their identities are out there. I do think there's a point where it's like the shtick becomes not even old for the fans because there's always going to be a group of fans that are just like just ravenous for the lore. Um
Yeah.
but like we've kind of said there's like a law of diminishing returns on this, I think. Um, and I think when they like it, Slipknot hit the same wall. I mean, they still wear the masks and stuff, and maybe they will continue to wear them. I think they will. Like, why wouldn't they? Sleep Token,
Yeah.
unless that becomes part of the story. Like, there's no reason for them not to. But I do, we know who the members of Slipknot are now. We know the members of Kiss now. Even Ghost, another band that we didn't actually talk about because I don't like their music. Who maintained some level of anonymity for a long time. We know who they are now, and it's not because we discovered it or whatever. Although that did happen at some point. They openly, this is who we are, whatever. I think there will be that moment for Sleep Token. How it happens and what they choose to do with it, I guess we'll still have to wait and see. But I think it'll be there's a chance that it's escalated by a flooding of the market with bands that are trying to capitalize on that secret sauce. And President is the first, and it's working. And I think there are bands that are taking note of that. There are artists out there that are taking note of that.
Yeah, I am curious to see like if, like you said, you have a band that's like, well, we've got an album in the oven, it's getting, mixed and mastered and doing all this stuff. Is like, we haven't gotten traction yet. Do we just disband in quotes and then like release this album as a new mystery band and like lean into that shtick? I do wonder like if people will think about that and use that strategy of like, hey, let's just buy some goofy masks from, Spirit Halloween and like lean into it. Is like, we spend a couple $100 on costumes and maybe it makes us famous.
Yeah. Oh, another band that's anonymous that I love that's not even really a band. I mean, they kind of are. Clowncore.
Oh, yeah. That's a
I don't
good
know
one.
why that just popped into my head, but you said Spirit of Halloween masks, and I immediately thought of Clowncore for some reason.
You also have like Guar and stuff. They're
Or,
like
yeah.
they very much like lean into that shtick and like, they're and I feel like they're a very niche kind of thing, but like there's a huge fan base for them and like their
They've also
shows are
played like late night shows and shit too. Like they're
they're like
strangely like they have a weird following because I think it's less about the music and more about the like show and the shtick and people think it's
it
funny.
becomes more of like a performance art piece than it is
Right.
like about the actual music and
Yeah.
like how goofy and stuff that they are that like. And I do appreciate that like currently we have this like different bands have different shticks and like while you boil it down to like they're anonymous, they kind of have their own thing. Like some just wear masks for the sake of wearing masks. Some like have a sort of universal lore that they're adding to, and then some they've got like theming to their costumes and stuff, and then so you've got all these like different pieces that kind of like make, even though like generically they're all anonymous bands, they all have their own sort of like sub shtick with it that I think has kept it from being like, oh, this is just another anonymous band.
Another
This is
band
super
doing
boring.
the same thing. Yeah, everyone's kind of. I think up until President came, like to me, President is following a very similar route to Sleep Token. I feel like everybody else did something kind of different. I do think President is kind of copying Sleep Token shtick, just in a different universe. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, we'll see because again, there's one song, and we don't know anything really of the lore or anything like that. So like, it's another one of those up for interpretation things for now. But he is doing interviews. So
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we may get some more information sort of on that. So that is one thing that sets him apart. He is doing interviews.
Huh.
But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've seen one.
Does he use like a voice altering thing? Like sort of
I
like
believe that he did. I don't remember,
Okay.
but his singing voice is very distinctive for who he is. But
yeah, I wasn't sure if he would try to have his like
that's kind of what gave
voice,
it away. Yeah. I mean, but he did say in the interview that he's going to like maintain his anonymity as this character, and that when he puts on the mask he becomes that character. So I don't think that I do think that he's going, even though people know who he is, and they knew like almost immediately, um, that he's not gonna like ever come out and be like, I am this person.
Gotcha. Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, if that makes sense.
That's interesting.
But
I
yeah, it's pretty cool, honestly. I like the whole like I'm a big fan of concept records, and I'm a big fan of uh you know the like bands that build a lore and do all that stuff. So, obviously one of my favorite bands is Coheed and Cambria. So obviously that's like, their whole thing is steeped in fiction. But, I don't want it to become, like, I don't want that market to be flooded because I think it does kind of water it down. And I do kind of see President as being some level of a copy of what Sleep Token's doing. But
That's fair. Yeah. I'm sure they probably see it and like are trying to like jump on it and stuff, but we'll see. Like time will tell whether their shtick works like Sleep Tokens, or if it is just purely a product of like Sleep Token just knows how to captivate an audience and is just
yeah,
writing
and they
music that
put on
people
an
want to hear.
incredible show.
Yeah.
Incredible show.
That is the
And
thing. It's like
it's
from the costumes to the album artwork to the music to their live performances, like all of it is this like universe of art. That it's all kind of like this performance art that is just in so many different facets that I think is just for me what makes them so interesting. They're just like
yeah.
keeps me keeps me enthralled.
Yeah, and the music has been consistent, and that's, I mean, you and I kind of both agree that this recent record isn't their best. We kind of started off the show with that, but it's still good. It's still quality music. They're still doing stuff that I feel like, while bands like Dayseeker and stuff are doing similar things, it's not to the like level that Sleep Token is hitting. Uh, just as a whole, I feel like.
Yeah.
They're not getting as experimental as Sleep Token is. And in some situations, that risk, it's a big risk, and then like you're going to alienate some of your listeners, whatever. But like it's those risks that I think sets them apart in the scene. And
Yeah.
also what makes them very controversial in the scene. But that's what sets them apart from a band like Dayseeker, who I think takes risks, but not as big as risks, to where I think Dayseeker doesn't seem to get as much flack as Sleep Token, but maybe that's because they're in the spotlight. Who knows? It's all speculation, but I feel like at this point we're kind of beating a dead horse. But this was a fun conversation, dude.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to talk about because it's still wild to me. Like anytime I think about it, anytime I see them on a chart, and like, are they going to be at the fucking Grammys next year? Like they probably have to be,
That would be
right?
wild to see like Vessel come up on stage and like
Like
win a Grammy and
they
like
almost have to be at the, like you. Between the Buried to Me was at the Grammys, Dream Theater was at the Grammys. None of them hit number one on the overall Billboard chart, like both album and artist. Like
yeah. I can't imagine a
I
world
don't know.
where
I can't
they
think of a metal band
don't
that's
win.
done that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially because they do like best metal act and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like,
Like,
I
how do
don't.
you not give it to them for being like one of the first metal bands? Like that's not named Metallica or
Yeah,
something like that. Like that's not like this old band or whatever
yeah.
that
I
has
don't know
hit
how
number one
they.
on those charts.
I don't know
They almost
how.
have to win a Grammy.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly
Like
like couldn't see an argument against it because it's just like, well, the
no,
people have kind of decided by putting like
it's
the only metal band like pretty much in at least in the last like recent history to make
literally
a
the only
Billboard
way.
chart.
Literally the only way I see them not going to the Grammy. Well, they have to be there. They almost have to be there. And
Yeah,
again, this isn't even close to not close. They'll probably be in my top 10 albums of the year, maybe. Like, but this isn't going to be my album of the year. So like, I think the general fan, I don't know how people feel. It seems like most people kind of agree with that, except for the people who suckle at the Sleep Token teat. Like, I think most people kind of look at this like this isn't their best album. This isn't going to be the best album this year. Um, but like the only way I see they have to be there. The only way that I see them not winning is because Dream Theater released a new record with Portnoy on drums for the first time in a while. If Dream Theater gets nominated, I could see out of a respect thing them giving it to Dream Theater. That's the only way I can see them not winning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they almost have to be in the conversation.
Yeah, they have to be like a nominee for the metal album just because they were, on the Billboard charts. That it's like you can't deny a band that's gotten this prolific in the metal scene when you have
in such a short period of time too.
Yeah, and you have a category that is like best metal artist or best metal album or whatever. The categories are. I don't watch the Grammys, so I don't really know.
They're pissing off popular artists because they're taking their spots on charts. Like what metal band has done that?
Yeah. It's like honestly,
in recent memory,
you could even potentially lump them into like best pop artist too. Like
honestly,
the fact that
best new artist, new emerging artists. Like there's all kinds of categories that I feel like they won't be in but could fit in.
Yeah.
Like
so I feel like
it's one thing that's popping into my head is that Knocked Loose Poppy song was nominated, and I don't know what won. Probably
I can't remember.
Regardless, it was nominated. It was on Billboard charts, but it never hit number 1.
Yeah.
So the fact that I think Emergence is the song that maybe hit number 1, and then the record itself was number 1 on the chart, and then the band was number 1.
Yeah,
so like
that's wild.
They had a single, an album, and them as an artist were all like at one point number 1 on global charts or whatever, not just like rock or heavy music or metal or whatever. It was like they're sitting above like Morgan Wallen and Taylor Swift and like
that is a crazy timeline we're on.
I want to see if they're still there. Billboard top. What is it? Top 200 or some shit? Top 200 albums. It's going to be Taylor Swift probably right now. Oh, God damn it. So many ads. Holy shit. Can you get that under control, Internet? I don't know if you're listening. Can we stop with the ads?
If not, the Internet should subscribe to our podcast.
Yeah, Internet, please subscribe.
Yeah, anyways, though, I do think that is them being nominated. It's got to be like definitely a thing.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know why I'm having trouble finding this stupid thing. It doesn't really matter, but like, regardless, I just wanted to see the band. I forget the bands that they were like sitting right above, but I thought it was.
Well, in the comments, you can let us know.
Oh, they dropped to 6th now.
Dang. 6 is still good.
Still high. But like it's Morgan Wallen ahead of them now. Oh, it's because Morgan Wallen just released a new thing. Dumb. But like the artists that they were above was Morgan Wallen, SZA, Kendrick Lamar, Sabrina Carpenter. And they're still currently ahead of Sabrina Carpenter, Bad Bunny. This is the global chart. Billie Eilish, Shabuzi, Chappell Roan. Like this is the chart that they're on. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a metal band.
That is wild.
I also love that the chick that like freaked out on them or whatever freaked out because like they were ahead of her dropped to 22nd. So.
The people have spoken.
Just want to laugh at that for a hot second, but her name was Kali Uchis. I have no idea who she is.
Yeah, I have no idea who that is.
But her peak position was number 2, and Sleep Token's peak position was number 1. So, oh man. Anyways, yeah, this was a fun conversation. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was fun.
Look forward to seeing if they win a Grammy or seeing if they're even nominated. That'll be like that's got to be. I mean, it'd be cool to see them nominated for a Grammy that isn't just the metal one. That would be like so monumental
That would
for.
be cool.
I doubt that's going to be a thing, but like that would be wild to see like Sleep Token for like new emerging artists or so. I don't know what all the grant. I don't freaking watch that shit, but uh, unless I'm forced to, I don't watch that shit. Um, but yeah, that would I would definitely watch if like they're nominated in like multiple categories just to see. I would love to see like the faces of the people in the crowd when a dude in a full freaking
The full
cosplay get up
garb comes up to
just
the stage.
walks up.
Doesn't say any
You know,
words. He just grabs it, waves, and walks off the
yeah,
stage.
does one of his little weird dances and just like scoots off the stage.
That's funny.
Oh man. All right. I think we've talked about this topic enough. I
Yeah.
think it's crazy. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. It's something to keep an eye on, this whole like new emergence of sort of anonymous bands and how quickly they seem to rise, and if we're going to see more of them, and just see how high Sleep Token can go, and see how high President ends up whenever his album drops, their album drops. Um, yeah, it's wild. We're going to
Yeah.
keep an eye on it. Uh, this episode was brought to you by Eargasm Earplugs. Use code Gentleman10 at checkout and get a discount. Take the step to protect your hearing today. I forgot to do that in the beginning, so just throw that out there now. They are awesome. My whole family just got them because my parents go to concerts now, not like metal shows or anything, but they have like a season pass to this little venue near our house, and they go to a lot of shows now, just like random cover bands and
Nice.
shit. But he got them all set up with some Eargasm earplugs. They work great. We wore them to BT Bam. My ears weren't ringing
Yeah.
the next day. That was nice.
Yeah, just my knees and back that hurt, but my
Oh my
ears were
god,
fine.
my whole body, dude. We are too old for mosh pits. But it's still fun. It was still worth it. Like a 3 day recovery, like fully recovered. That's worth it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Just don't have any major plans for the next couple of days afterwards, and you're fine.
I was walking with. It's funny. The venue was like an hour away from my house. Drove home, and like when I got out of my car, my whole body was like so stiff that I was like, I needed a walker to get to my front door. And it was so
No.
late, and my wife was in bed, and like no one's. I mean, not that I needed someone to physically help me, but there was a moment where I was like, I might need someone to physically help me up these
Oh
steps.
no. It was definitely not that rough for me. I think mostly just my standard, knee and
Yeah.
lower back pain from standing on hard floors for a long period of time. But I was like
Yeah.
otherwise fairly fine. But
I was in the pit for all of Coma Ecliptic, and
yeah, yeah,
I
you were
took
in
like
there
a
way
pretty.
longer than I
I
was.
took a
So
pretty good shot early on, and like I fell, and like this other big dude like fell. We both like fell on top of each other, and I don't know if I fully recovered like the rest of the night from that, and that was like 2 songs in.
yeah, yeah, you were in there for
So,
a while. It
but
was a fun
anyways,
show.
yeah, eargasm earplugs, good stuff. Protect your ears, gentlemen. 10 to check out. Do it, or don't. I don't care. It's fine. Um,
No, do it.
it's your hearing, not ours. Uh,
Be smart about it. Protect those ears.
but anyways, I think we got some interviews that we're working on scheduling. Matt, I'll sync up with you on some of those situations here after this. We don't want to give it all away here, but
Yeah.
some pretty cool upcoming bands that we want to talk to. A guy who's pretty big in the music industry as well. Talking to him, guy who's been involved with some Grammy Award winning artists. That's all I'll throw out there. And then, uh, yeah, some exciting stuff and some more frequent content because now we might have time to do that.
We both have some free time finally. So looking forward to getting
So
back into it. It was nice to get to chat and
hell yeah.
dust off the podcasting cobwebs and
I literally had to completely reset up my entire like setup here. My it was it's still kind of a mess. I got wires everywhere, but it's we'll get things straightened out as we go here. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely excited to continue this stuff. Excited to see that sort of sleepy like icon go away once we post this episode. Really looking forward to that. And I think
Yeah.
this is a good one. I think this is fun. I want to hear people's thoughts too on like Sleep Token and anonymous bands and ones we may have
Yeah.
missed. I know we had other ones on our list. We kind of just made this like I didn't even make a list. I have no notes. This was
Yeah, it
just
was
all
mostly
off the
just Sleep Token was kind
cuff.
of what we ended up Sleep Token
Yeah.
was the focus point of this
Yeah.
episode.
But yeah, if there are other ones maybe that are coming out or sneaking out now that maybe like we haven't sort of seen or like, obviously President was the big one. Are there other ones? Were there ones before Kiss? Because I feel like Kiss was like sort of the pioneer, and then Slipknot was kind of the modern pioneer, and then Sleep Token brought it into like prog and metalcore. Obviously there's Ghost too with like the dad rock shit. Um, but yeah, if there's any ones that we missed, definitely bring those up. Throw those on the
Yeah.
Instagram icon once we post it. We can have more conversation about Sleep Token and the lore and President and whether or not
Yeah,
it's
we're
going to
happy to
work for
chat about
them.
it.
We
So,
love to talk. So as you can see, because we were trying to end this episode like 10 minutes ago, but and this episode turned out to be really freaking long, and I thought it was going to be short. So
yeah, we
uh,
had a lot to say.
welcome back. But yeah, anyways, long story short, we're going to see you soon. More content coming. And if you guys have ideas for episodes you want us to do, topics you want us to talk about, like what we just did, kind of just throw a random topic and bullshit on it for, I don't know how long we've been on here, like an hour and a half or less, maybe, who knows? Yeah, feel free to throw some stuff at us. Bands, if you're listening and you want to promote your music or anything, that's obviously kind of why we started this in the first place, not just to sort of blab in your ear about topics, but also to help you discover new music and help your music get discovered by new people. So feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for bands to talk to, music to promote, music to discover, because again, we did this for selfish reasons in the beginning, to discover new music. But yeah, that is kind of all we had for you today. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we will catch you soon, not in 6 months.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
See ya.